I pulled into the hotel driveway with the same feeling I get before dentist appointments. Necessary, but nothing to look forward to. The Lark Grand looked exactly like the pictures my sister had sent in the group chat. White stone walls, glass archways, lavender shrubs lined up like they were too scared to grow wild. The kind of place built for Instagram memories, not family ones. A valet came to the window before I cut the engine. He smiled, polite, eyes skimming the passenger seat instead of me. "Welcome to the Lark Grand. Name?" "Soren Kestrel," I said, handing over my keys. He returned a name tag with a fancy gold lanyard. Ms. Sorrel Caston, event assistant. I stared at it for half a beat. "This isn't right." He blinked. "Sorry, this is what was printed. You can check at the desk if you want." No apology, no fix. Just another folder in the cabinet marked, "You're lucky to be invited at all." I slid the tag around my neck. A few early guests passed by, one of them smiling like I was someone she half recognized from her yoga class. "Are you with catering?" she asked. I just smiled and kept walking. You can be erased, not with hate, but with neglect. And sometimes that hurts more. The entrance was still half closed, staff buzzing around with checklists and cordless mics. The scent of eucalyptus and candle wax filled the air, expensive, hollow smells. I passed a row of florals, cream roses, too tightly bunched, with artificial pearls glued to the stems. I remembered suggesting my Seattle florist friend. No one replied to that email. The bridal board was on an easel by the door. Names of the party, hand calligraphed in navy ink. Lissa's friends, college roommates, cousins I hadn't seen in a decade. Not mine. I moved toward the slideshow looping on a screen. Pictures of Lissa and Daylon, childhood photos, family vacations, the vineyard trip, graduation. I kept waiting for a photo with me in it. It never came. And somehow, that hit harder than I expected. Not like a slap, more like a shoulder bump that keeps happening until you forget you were ever walking straight. The wedding planner was near the front, bent over a clipboard. She looked barely 22, panicked, and a little sweaty. I approached with a soft, "Hi, I'm trying to find my seat." She flipped through pages. "Name?" "Soren Kestrel." She froze slightly. "Ah, okay. You were originally next to the mother of the bride, but we had a last-minute VIP seating request." She didn't say who the VIP was. I already knew. "You've been moved to table 19. It's a little closer to the back, but still a great view." I bit back a smile. Table 19. The one they reserve for out-of-town coworkers and estranged second cousins. Lissa passed by just then, dressed to the nines. She glanced at the clipboard and laughed like this was all so silly. "Don't be so dramatic." "You're still here, aren't you?" I smiled back. "Yes, I am. But what version of me do they expect?" I nodded and walked off before I said something that would stick. I was still holding the name tag when a memory knocked loose. 5 years ago, Thanksgiving. I offered to host in Seattle. I had a nice apartment, a job I loved, space. Mom insisted on Boise, said it was tradition. I flew in, brought homemade pumpkin pie with a ginger crust. She took it, smiled, and said, "Let's save yours for later. We have bakery ones up front." That pie sat in the fridge until I flew home. Never opened. That was the moment I learned the difference between being invited and being welcomed. I stepped into the restroom, trying to slow my breathing. The mirrors were too clean, too clear. I fixed my lipstick, then just stared. I looked okay, maybe a little tired. I wondered if they'd notice, if they ever had. My phone buzzed. A text from my assistant. "Hope you're not letting them get to you today. Your sanctuary will still be there when you get back." I started to reply, then deleted it. You survive not by fighting every battle, but by knowing which ones are worth your breath. The sound of guests arriving swelled behind the doors. Laughter, heels clicking, the hum of something important happening. I stepped out into the foyer. Dresses swirled past me. Hugs, posed photos, squeals of reunion. No one looked for me. I pulled out the name tag again, folded it in half, and slid it into my clutch. Checked the paper card. Table 19, Soren Kestrel. I nodded. This time, I wouldn't be erased, not quietly, not ever again. The room was full, not just with people, but with sound. Chairs scraping, glasses clinking, someone laughing too hard near the bar. I hadn't even had a sip of champagne yet, and my skin already felt tight. My mother stood near the stage with a mic in hand, her voice smooth and warm, like she was giving a TED talk on the virtues of motherhood. I'd heard that voice my whole life. It was the voice she used when she was charming church boards and homeowner associations. Never too loud, never too sharp. "We're just so proud," she said, pausing to let the applause catch up. "Our daughter, so gracious, so generous, is giving her sister and Daylon the home of their dreams." It took me a second. Home? She didn't say helping or supporting or offering to contribute. She said giving, and everyone clapped like it was a vow renewal, like I'd just agreed to hand over the deed to my life's work wrapped in a ribbon. I didn't move. She didn't ask. She announced. There wasn't time to process. Heads turned. Smiles widened. A few people gave me that approving nod you give someone who donates to charity in your name. I saw my Uncle Ray lift his glass and mouth. "That's my girl." Lissa moved fast, took the mic from Mom with a laugh so perfectly timed you'd think it was rehearsed. "Wait, what? Soren, is that true? That's insane! I can't believe you'd do that for me!" She looked right at me. Her eyes were big, watery, and too wide. The photographer snapped a photo. My face was frozen in something that wasn't a smile and wasn't a refusal. My hand gripped the stem of my glass hard enough that I had to remind myself not to snap it. I stood slowly, said nothing, let them soak in the illusion. I wasn't part of this scene. I was a prop in it. Once the crowd buzz had dimmed into background noise again, I found her. My mother. She was arranging a centerpiece in a small side room, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just signed over my house in front of 200 people. "You didn't even ask me." Her hand paused on a candle. She didn't look up. "You had no right," I added. Now she looked at me. "It's your sister's wedding," she said evenly. "Do you want to be the villain here?" I blinked. She continued, like she'd been waiting for this. "Think about your father. What would he have wanted? Unity? Peace? Family? Not scenes." Her voice dropped a little, sweetened. "Please don't make me cry in front of the guests, Soren." That tone, God, that tone. The one that turned everything into my fault before I even opened my mouth. It wasn't about the house. It was about power. As I turned to leave, she said quietly behind me, "You don't even live there full time. Be reasonable." I stepped into the hallway outside the bridal suite just in time to be cornered. "Sis, hey." Lissa's voice was soft, feathery, too light. "I didn't know Mom was going to say all that," she said quickly, stepping close, smiling like we were sharing a secret. "But I'm not going to lie. The idea made me happy." She touched my arm. I didn't flinch. Not this time. "I mean," she went on, "it's not like you even live there full time, right?" There it was again. That sentence. That assumption. That narrative. They didn't ask for the house. They asked for a piece of me, and they dressed it in ribbons. I didn't answer her. I didn't argue. I walked away. Inside the ladies' room, I locked myself in the far stall and sat down without caring that my dress might wrinkle. Silence pressed against my ears. You'd think that would feel like relief, but it didn't. It felt like being wrapped too tightly in a hug you didn't want. Someone knocked. "That dress is gorgeous, by the way," a woman's voice chirped. "Just stunning." I didn't answer. I stood, moved to the mirror, wiped under my eyes, even though there was nothing there. Looked at myself like a stranger. This is why I stay away, not because I don't love them, but because love like this costs too much. I touched the edge of my clutch. I could still leave, but I didn't. An hour later, they called for the family photo. Everyone lined up under the big Mr. Mrs. sign. Serafina waved me forward, insistent. "Come on, stand right here, next to Lissa." The whole family beamed. They didn't notice that I hadn't spoken a word in 2 hours. I stood between my mother and my sister, body still, face calm. The flash popped, and right as it did, I blinked, not from the light, from the thought. If I was going to be the villain in this story, maybe it was time to choose the kind of villain I'd be. I didn't say anything after the photo. I just walked, out of the crowd, out of the spotlight, into the one place in that entire hotel where no one had a camera. The hallway behind the ballroom smelled like lemon cleaner and dust, the kind of corridor where staff disappear between courses or sneak a cigarette when the bride's father won't stop giving speeches. It was narrow, dimly lit, and, thank God, empty. I stopped by a wall lined with framed photos from other weddings. I scanned them without really seeing, until one caught my eye. Thanksgiving. Our family. 2015. Lissa, Mom, and Daylon. That photo had been on the mantle back home, too. I remembered it. Only difference. The original had all four of us. Me included. This one? Cropped. Clean. It wasn't even subtle. I leaned in closer and muttered, "I've been erased before. This isn't new. It's just louder this time." Back in the lounge, Serafina was rearranging a floral centerpiece like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't just fed my body to a crowd like a Roman sacrifice. I stood in the doorway for a moment before stepping inside. "Why did you say I agreed to the house?" I asked, even, measured. She didn't flinch. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo. It was Dad, sitting at the kitchen table, pen in hand, with a sticky note held up. She passed it to me like it was sacred scripture. I looked down. In careful black print, the note read, "We do this for the family." I blinked. "You had this made?" She tilted her head. "It's real." "No, it's not," I said flatly. "Dad couldn't hold a pen like that in his last year. You know it. His tremor was so bad he couldn't even button his own shirt." She looked at me, really looked, and said nothing. I folded the photo in half and slipped it back onto the table. "You're really good at building ghosts." She didn't stop me when I walked away. I kept moving until I hit the corridor that led out back. The kitchen doors swung closed behind me, and the sounds of silverware and laughter vanished. The patio was quiet. String lights glowed overhead, swaying gently. And there, sitting at one of the side tables, was Aunt Cora. She looked up and gave me a nod that wasn't quite a smile. "Needed air?" she asked. I didn't answer, just sat down across from her. Without a word, she slid a folded napkin across the table. I opened it. Inside was a photo. Lissa's engagement party. Everyone was there, except Emily. My throat caught. "She was told not to come that night," Cora said softly. "Serafina said she'd distract the guests. Too political, too opinionated. You know how your mom gets." I nodded slowly. "You think you're the first to be replaced?" she added, voice low. "You're just the one who came back." We sat there in silence, the weight of what wasn't said heavier than anything else. Back in my car, I sat with the AC off. Windows cracked just enough to hear the city beyond. I pulled out the fake photo again, the sticky note, the smile on my dad's face, the fake handwriting, and then I thought of the real moment. 3 years ago, Thanksgiving. We'd been in the kitchen. Lissa was outside, showing off her ring. Mom was working the crowd. Dad handed me a pen and a brochure. "Start building for yourself," he said. "Don't let them decorate your life for you." He had circled a listing, a property just outside Seattle, Cedar Pines, the same house I'd eventually buy, the one they just tried to gift away like a centerpiece. I held the two memories side by side, one real, one manufactured. And that's when it hit me. They don't build families. They build stories, and when you stop fitting the story, they edit you out. Not yet, I told myself. Not now. Let her think the draft hasn't been proofread. I stepped back into the venue, just as the music shifted to something livelier. Someone handed me a glass of champagne. I took it, but didn't drink. Smiled, clinked glasses, watched, let them enjoy their moment. They erased me from the photo. Let's see how they react when the picture starts moving. It was during one of those lulls, the kind where the music softens and people retreat to their tables to sip lukewarm champagne, that Serafina asked to speak with me, calmly, like she was inviting me to go pick out napkin colors or approve a tablecloth. She guided me to a small planner's room near the side hallway. I didn't argue, just followed. She didn't close the door. Of course not. She liked conversations that sounded private but stayed technically public. Safe. I just wanted to clear something up, she began, pulling out her phone. She tapped the screen, turned it toward me. It was a screenshot of a text thread. My name, my icon, a message that read, "Of course she can have the house. It's hers." I stared at it. The font was wrong. The spacing didn't match. The date suggested it was from weeks ago. "I never sent that." Serafina smiled, slow and patient. "Well, if you've changed your mind, that's your business." "But we told people based on this." She slipped the phone back into her clutch. "We've built a narrative, Soren. Don't make us look like liars." And just like that, the air thinned. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The point had already been made. This wasn't about truth. It was about control. Control of the story, of appearances, of me. I left the room before she could say anything else. The gift table was in a corner of the reception area, tucked behind a column wrapped in tulle. I scanned it, looking for the Tiffany box I had custom wrapped 3 days ago. The one with the engraved date and silver key pendant. It wasn't there. I flagged the wedding coordinator. "Hi, sorry, was a small blue box moved from the main table?" She blinked, checked her list. "Oh, that one. It was added to the parents' gift cluster. They wanted everything from the family together." I walked over, found the box, unwrapped. Next to a card that read, "With love, from the Kestrel parents." My name only exists here when someone else wears it. I moved through the crowd slowly, quiet. My head buzzed, not with anger, but calculation. I found Lissa near the dessert table. Alone, for once. "Did you know?" I asked, my tone low. She looked up, startled. Not guilty, startled. "Know what?" "The message. The one about the house." She hesitated, then gave the kind of shrug you see from someone who's had too many people make decisions for them. "Maybe you said it in passing. I mean, you know how Mom is. Once she hears something, it becomes truth." And then she added, like it was the cherry on top. "I never asked for the mansion, but now, it's hard to unask." I didn't say anything else. Didn't need to. Silence has weight when the other person is still defending a lie. I stepped outside. The sun had dipped lower now, casting that golden glow photographers love. I found a bench near the parking lot and sat down. No phone, no music, just air. I went over it all in my head. Fake messages, stolen gifts, edited photos, all wrapped in bows and bridal white. I thought of Dad again. Not the cleaned-up version Serafina clung to, the real one, the man who built things with his hands and didn't care how polished they looked as long as they stood straight. The truth doesn't shout. It waits for silence. I pulled out my phone, opened the message thread with Aunt Cora. "Still have what we talked about." Her reply came fast. "Safely stored. Say when." I opened a new note on my phone. Titled it, "Version Control." Typed the first line, "Don't confront. Document." This was no longer about arguing with them. That would only feed their version. This was about collecting the real story, mine, and keeping it sharp. I stood and re-entered the building with a different stride. Not angry, not scared, just done being shaped by someone else's tools. Inside, the music had shifted again. Something upbeat. Guests were laughing. People dancing like nothing had cracked beneath the surface. A woman in a red dress looked at me, glass in hand. "Are you really giving them that house?" I smiled, friendly, almost amused. "Depends on what version of the story you've heard." I accepted a new glass of champagne from a tray as it passed, but I didn't drink it. I stood still, watching everything with a steady gaze. They wanted a story. I'll give them one they can't rewrite. I had one hand on the door handle when I saw her. The hallway was quiet, dimmed by the late-day light seeping through frosted glass. The music behind me had softened into something sentimental, some piano cover of a pop song that used to mean something in high school. But the weight in my chest wasn't nostalgia, it was clarity. Final. Cold. In my other hand was my clutch. Inside, my keys, a card, a plane ticket, my exit plan. I'd already written the text I was going to send Lissa. Sorry I had to leave early. It was beautiful. Short, empty, painless. I was even rehearsing how I'd walk past the front desk without looking back. How I'd tell the Uber driver to skip the small talk. It's not weakness to walk away. It's mercy. I turned halfway toward the exit, and then I saw Olive. She was standing at the edge of the ballroom, in the gap between two curtains. Not peeking, not hiding, just watching. She didn't wave. She didn't smile. She just stood there, silent. Still, I don't know what made me freeze. Maybe it was the way she looked at me. Not like a child looking at an adult, but like someone checking to see what kind of person you really are when no one else is watching. And just like that, I was 7 again. Upstairs, watching through the staircase rails as Lissa unwrapped the big gift at her sweet 16. Mom made a toast. Dad handed her the keys to something. Everyone cheered. I held my own gift behind my back. A handmade card. No one asked what was in it. They never did. I could leave, right now. Or I could stop the pattern. If I walked out now, I'd be handing Olive the same silence I was raised on. Maybe I wasn't invited to the story. But what if I rewrote the ending? I stepped away from the door. I didn't return to the main floor yet. I made my way around the side of the building, past the bar where Felix stood chatting with some cousins I barely recognized. He saw me coming. Smiled a little too quickly. "Hey," I said. "You still thinking of heading out early?" He hesitated. I noticed the way he adjusted his collar, that nervous tick when he was about to say something I wouldn't like. "I had a quick chat with your mom earlier," he said, tone careful. "Did you now?" "She told me you were feeling overwhelmed. Said she's worried about you." The word hit like an open palm. Overwhelmed. That's what she always used when she wanted to make it sound like I was unstable without outright saying it. Like concern could hide control. Felix went on. "She thought maybe the whole house thing just got miscommunicated. You know, families." I didn't interrupt. I wanted to hear how deep this went. He tried to smile. "Maybe staying a little longer, seeing it through, helps you take back control of the narrative, instead of leaving it unfinished." I nodded. Once. Just once. "Thanks," I said, voice even. "For confirming I'm not crazy." He looked puzzled, but I was already walking away. There's a bench tucked along the garden wall. It's barely lit. Just enough to not trip over it. I sat down. My hands rested in my lap like they weren't mine. The tears came without warning. No sound, no performance, just salt and surrender. They broke me with applause. I broke alone. I used to think kindness was the currency of love. Now I wonder if it's just a weapon for the ones who never have to use it. Every time I've spoken up in this family, it's been twisted. I was dramatic, ungrateful, difficult, emotional. That word, emotional, they say it like it's a flaw, not a sign of feeling. For the first time, I didn't ask myself what I did wrong. I asked what they were afraid I'd say if I finally told the truth. The tears dried up. Not all at once, but enough. I sat straighter, pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, typed 4 words. They taught me silence, and then I added 4 more. I'll teach them strategy. This wasn't about revenge. Revenge is messy. Revenge gets dismissed. This was about accountability, and I was done asking for it. I stood up. My body ached, not from exhaustion, but from holding back too long. I didn't walk fast, didn't square my shoulders like a movie character. I just walked, with intent, through the side doors, back into the hall. The music was louder now, guests laughing, plates clinking, waiters weaving through tables. I passed a tray of drinks, picked up a glass, not champagne, water. Someone said my name. I didn't turn. A flash from the camera fired in front of me. This time, I looked straight into it. Let them take their pictures. I'm not hiding anymore. They passed the tray again, this time with gold-rimmed flutes instead of the basic crystal. Final toast of the evening. The music dipped, lights softened. A few guests had loosened ties, kicked off heels, but not her. Serafina was perched near the front, smiling like she owned the room. Lissa was glued to her side. Dylan hovered like he had a clipboard in his pocket. I stood a few feet away, glass just handed to me, and I knew before it reached my hand, something was off. It wasn't instinct, it was practice. I smelled it. Metallic, like old coins in water. My fingers tightened around the stem. I didn't sip, didn't even fake it. I scanned the table, clocked the glass in front of my mother's seat. Untouched, identical. When no one was looking, I switched them. Quick. Clean. She counts on obedience. Always has. They all do. That I'll smile, nod, play along. They never expect a pivot. The toast began. A cousin tapped her glass. Someone shouted, "To love!" Laughter, applause. Serafina lifted her flute, my flute, and took a delicate sip. I watched. She sat still at first, then blinked again. She didn't cough, didn't choke, but her fingers trembled. Barely, like a wind had passed through her, just enough to shift the mask. Her color changed, not much, but I noticed. Everyone else kept laughing. You poisoned the moment you tried to own what I built. The irony is, I was just in the way. She rose, probably for another round of praise, another manipulation disguised as maternal pride. But halfway up, her knees faltered. She reached for Daylon. That's when the room shifted. A waiter dropped a tray. A guest yelped. A child started crying. "Get water!" someone shouted. Another tried to grab the mic and make a joke, smooth it over. I didn't move, not an inch, just stood there, holding the glass she was supposed to hold. They always said I was the unstable one, I thought. Daylon got to her first, helped her sit. Napkins were passed around. Her hand waved him off. "She's fine," Lissa said too loudly. "Just the heat." I saw it spreading like ink in water. Whispers. "She probably skipped lunch." "She's on medication, right?" "Could just be low blood sugar." Dylan stepped forward. "She's okay. Sometimes her meds react weird with alcohol." And there it was, the narrative pivot. By the time I got to the outer ring of guests, the story had morphed. Now she was tired. Now it was just a reaction. Now people were blaming the bartender. "She didn't even drink that much," someone said. Nothing happened. People are overreacting. I clenched my hand around the stem of the untouched flute. Not out of guilt, but because of how fast they worked to protect her, how fast they erased me, again, and drew a cleaner line around her stumble. They spun the story before the truth had time to breathe. I walked to the restroom. Same one I stood in earlier that day, same mirror, same woman. This time I didn't fix my makeup. I placed my fingers on the glass, watched them blur. It didn't feel like victory, just confirmation. This wasn't the plan. But when people write the same script long enough, sometimes breaking the scene is the only way to get heard. I pulled out my phone, drafted a message. "There's a file I want you to hold." Didn't send it yet, but it was ready. I returned to the ballroom through the side. Near table 6, a boy, maybe 15, was laughing with his phone out. "You can see it," he said, showing someone next to him. "Her hand, right there. It shakes. Rewind." I looked over, red dot flashing in the corner of his screen. Facebook Live. Still going, and just like that, I understood. They thought the truth was a moment. Turns out it was a broadcast. The music had changed again, but no one was really listening anymore. It buzzed like background static, too cheerful for the room it filled. The last hour had blurred. Guests still moved, but slower now, more cautious. Like whatever happened to Serafina might be contagious. She'd returned to her seat, fanned, checked on, hands clasped tight like she was performing grief. Daylon did the talking now, explaining, deflecting. "Just a reaction," he said, over and over. Medication, heat, champagne. Pick an excuse. No one pushed back. Not really. Weddings are built on the agreement to pretend. Tonight, That agreement held. From the back of the room, I watched it all. No expression, no fidgeting, just stillness. They controlled the story until someone else pressed record. My phone buzzed. I stepped into the hallway and checked the screen. Cora. One word. Time? I didn't reply. Just stared at the message. She knew. She always did. After a beat, I typed back. Now. And she sent the audio file immediately, 3 minutes long. I put in my AirPods, hit play. It was Serafina's voice. Clear, confident, rehearsed. She won't say no publicly. Watch. She still needs us. There's no risk. My heart didn't race. My hand didn't shake. It wasn't shock. It was confirmation. Then came the part that made me close my eyes. If she speaks out, we'll bury her story in sentiment. The sound of her voice. It wasn't angry. It was smooth, like she was reading from a brand strategy sheet. Product placement, emotional angles, pre-scripted damage control. I stepped out onto the back patio, where the air was cooler and the city lights framed the parking lot. I stood there for a long time, letting the file replay in my head, letting every inch of me remember. A group of older women laughed near the valet station, Lissa among them, comfortable, untouched. That memory hit fast. Me, years ago, after the church recital. I'd smiled wrong. Cried at the wrong time. They left me behind at the post-service brunch. Mom said it was because I needed time to calm down. I didn't want to be calmed. I wanted to be heard. And now, I've been protecting the same people who turned erasure into tradition. Not this time. I walked inside, bypassing the crowd, scanning for Felix. Found him near the bar, glass in hand, talking to one of Daylon's brothers. Got a minute? I asked. He nodded, followed me to the lounge near the side wall, where the noise softened and the walls didn't echo. I took out my phone, pressed play. The recording played at low volume, but every word landed like thunder in that small space. Felix's eyes narrowed. He didn't speak, just looked at me, then the screen, then back again. A guest walked by, paused, leaned in slightly. He listened. By the time the recording ended, 4 people had heard it, and none of them looked surprised. Only confirmed. Daylon passed by. Want to hear your mother-in-law's true speech? I asked. He stopped, his face unreadable. What are you talking about? Cora stepped forward, out of nowhere, voice level. That recording's admissible. Want to keep talking lies? He didn't answer. He didn't have to, because the lie had already begun to rot in their mouths. Later, the ballroom emptied. Slowly, quietly. Music faded. Chairs sat half-tilted, napkins discarded on plates. The lights dimmed. Serafina returned. She walked in like nothing had happened, but stopped when she saw the small circle, the phones, the silence. What's going on? She asked. I looked at her. Don't worry, I didn't say a word, I said. I let your words speak instead. I handed her my phone. Screen lit, paused at the audio file. She didn't touch it. She looked at it, then walked away. A lie repeated is power. A lie recorded is evidence. I sat at one of the empty tables, alone. Across the room, Olive sat with her feet swinging under a chair, still watching. I reached for the champagne glass from earlier, the one I hadn't touched, held it up, watched my reflection in the curve. She thought she was erasing me from the photo. Turns out I was the frame. The DJ looked confused when he handed me the mic. I think he thought I was someone else, maybe a cousin giving the last toast, maybe one of the coordinators. Either way, the crowd clapped like they expected something sweet. Closure, gratitude, a bow wrapped around a mess no one wanted to admit was unraveling. I didn't speak at first. I just stood there, center floor, under that heavy chandelier. It hummed overhead like a heartbeat. Everyone stared, waiting for me to smile and tell them how beautiful it all was, how grateful I was, how lucky. I caught Serafina's eyes across the room. She didn't look worried, not exactly, just tight in the jaw, alert. They handed me a mic. Maybe it's time I stop whispering. I didn't accuse anyone. Not yet. I thanked the catering staff, the florist, the DJ. I thanked the out-of-town guests. I thanked everyone who showed up honestly and left their expectations at the door. Then I paused. I've learned something tonight, I said, calmly. Sometimes the people we're closest to forget that silence isn't the same as consent. That was all I said, but it was enough. A small gasp echoed from the back of the room. Then phones came out. I heard a shudder. A guest leaned in to whisper to another. I didn't name names. I let the implication do the work. As I stepped off the floor, my phone buzzed. Raymond Yu, my boss, my ally. I moved to the ballroom edge near the draped windows. Hey, I answered, barely above a whisper. We've been watching, he said, voice even. You held your ground. I want you to know. That house was never theirs to gift. I closed my eyes. He continued. You earned it. It's legally protected. I'm sending the docs now. Personal and legal emails. Forward as needed. Thank you, I said, sincerely. When I returned to the main floor, a few guests looked over. Curious. Unsettled. I lifted my phone. To whom it may concern, I read aloud, the Cedar Pines property was awarded to Ms. Soren as a result of her exclusive work on our 2022 Sustainable Design Program. The words floated, then dropped. People gasped. The planner froze. Daylon took a step back. I looked up. Let's not mistake family dinners for legal documents. The crowd shifted. I turned toward Serafina and Lysa. Finally, Serafina's face had frozen somewhere between denial and retreat. She didn't speak. She didn't move. You can't manage my name anymore, I said to her. Lisa opened her mouth to speak. I didn't let her. You inherited her smile, I said, but I've reclaimed my silence. I didn't drop the mic. I wasn't here for drama. I placed it gently on the table beside the cake, like a signature. No yelling. No apologies. Just truth. I walked toward the exit. The ballroom behind me blurred into something quieter. Near the door, Olive was sitting cross-legged, fidgeting with a small toy. She looked up when I approached. I knelt beside her, pulled the folded napkin from my clutch. Inside it, the name tag from the start of all this, the one that said I was someone else, I placed it in her hand. Keep this, I whispered. So they never rewrite your part of the story. She nodded, small, serious, and I left. No speeches, no music, no need to explain. They tried to delete me from the narrative. Now I own the pen. The morning after always feels quieter than it should. Even in a city like Boise, with its sleepy streets and polite skies, there was something especially still about that Sunday. I woke in the hotel room I hadn't unpacked in. The dress still hung where I'd left it. Shoes by the door, untouched. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared out the window, thinking about Olive, about the look in her eyes when I handed her that folded napkin. My phone buzzed. 22,000 views. That was the live stream count. The clip, her hand shaking, the sip, the collapse, was everywhere now. No editing, no spin. The family group chat was a battlefield, some congratulating me, others calling me cold. A few just typing ellipses like they wanted to say something but lost the nerve halfway. One aunt sent a message in private. You were brave. I just couldn't say it first. I didn't reply. I didn't know how. I felt hollow, not broken, just emptied out. After checking out, I rode to the airport without saying much to the driver. The sky was gray, low, but not raining. The kind of sky that waits for someone else to make the first move. At the gate, I boarded early, avoided eye contact, took the window seat. As the plane rolled down the tarmac, I closed my eyes and let the moments wash over me. Not the drama, just the spaces in between. Her voice, his silence, the weight of every glass I never drank. The woman next to me cleared her throat gently. You okay? I looked over, startled. Yeah, I'm finally getting there. Healing isn't applause. It's quiet, steady, like this plane. Back in Seattle, I dropped my bag in the hallway and turned on a single lamp. The light hit the framed prints on the wall. Not family photos, just art I liked. Lines, balance, control. A ping pulled me to my laptop. My assistant had forwarded a wedding appreciation e-card. I opened it. Names rolled down the screen. Caterer, DJ. Makeup artist. Lissa's coworker who designed the invitations. Not me. Nothing about the floral upgrades I arranged. Nothing about the honeymoon suite I paid for. My assistant walked in with 2 coffees, saw the screen. You got them the room, don't they know? They know, I said. They just don't want anyone else to. I closed the laptop. In the kitchen, I made tea slowly. Messages kept coming in. People asking if I'd sue, go public, speak out. I opened a new post, typed a sentence, deleted it. My story wasn't for revenge. It was to remember who I am. The recording, the name tag, the thank you card. All kept, not shared. I sipped the tea. Not everything broken needs to be burned. Some things just don't get fixed. Later that evening, I pulled out a blank card, wrote Olive a note. Simple, no grand speeches. One day, you'll see moments like this play out around you. Just know, you're allowed to choose yourself. I tucked the name tag inside a children's book and left it on my desk. I didn't mail it, not yet. We don't always get closure. Sometimes we just choose not to carry it forward. The next day, I returned to work. The city moved differently than Boise, faster, louder, but I knew my rhythm here. At Hayes Capital, Raymond called me into his office. You ready for Tokyo next quarter? I nodded. Give me one more night, I said. Then I'm all in. Back at my desk, I looked out over the skyline. The light had softened just enough to catch on the glass buildings. I lifted my water glass. No gold rim, no toast. Just stillness. On my shelf was a framed photo. Not from the wedding. From the groundbreaking of my first solo project. They edited me out of one story, but they forgot. I was always building my own.